3 years ago. 3 years ago, the Taliban took over Afghanistan. And I understand there are all kinds of other things in the news today. We're going to get to the Trump sentencing and the border and things like that. But we just felt obligated to say something in the open about Afghanistan. You know, the guys who served there lost their lives there, lost their limbs there. They deserve so much better than what they've gotten. They deserve a reckoning. They deserve not just a recognition of what they did, the people who crapped on what they did, shortchanged them, they deserve to be called out too. You know, I got back from Iraq 2004. 2004, I got back from Iraq because my 4 years in the Marine Corps was up. And remember, that was kind of the beginning of the global war on terror, right? So when I got back, I got out of the Marine Corps. I had some problems, stomach problems, little things. Don't worry, I'm fine. But I needed to start going to the VA hospital. And I was living in Tucson at the time. And I would go to the VA hospital, get checked out, go get a physical, go get this appointment, that appointment. And when I first started going to the VA in 04, 05, I noticed I was really one of the youngest guys, patients, in the whole place. Because think about it. Prior to the global war on terror, it was all Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans, World War II guys were still around back then. So I was fairly young, and the other patients, I'd be sitting in a waiting room and looking around, and the other patients, they're all older, old men, 60s, 70s, 80s, old men. And it was wonderful being around them. But as I kept going for a few years, they kept getting younger. They started to look like me. And I was blessed by God to come back with all my fingers and toes and hands and come back in one piece physically for the most part. A lot of these guys were wheeling themselves around the VA, no legs, eye gone, arm gone, arms gone. And young men, I was 24, 25 years old, mid-20s somewhere, men my age, maimed for the rest of their lives, and many of them maimed in Afghanistan. And I wanted to just say that because as you're sitting here watching me on the first, you're living your life, I live my life, but that 25-year-old is, Lord willing, if he's still alive, took care of himself. He's my age now, 43, and he's never got to play baseball with his kids. He needs a special car if he's even going to drive, if he's even able to at all. If he can't afford a specialty smart home, then his wife has to help him use the bathroom for the rest of his life. The rest of his life is changed because we went to war in Afghanistan. And that brings me to this. The leaders, political leaders, Democrats, Republicans, military leaders, generals, admirals, the ones responsible for taking 20 years of service and sacrifice and spitting all over those people, all over them. And I'll never forget the anger. You probably remember I was screaming and yelling that day when Afghanistan fell. Because look, Afghanistan was going to fall. The Taliban were too tough for the loser Afghan security forces we'd been training for so long, so it was going to fall. But we just yanked all our guys out of Bagram. We, of course, left a bunch of ISIS terrorists in the jail on Bagram. They were, of course, set free immediately. And then the country begins to fall, and Joe Biden couldn't even be bothered to go to work.
Where is the president? Why isn't he communicating fulsomely to the American people?
The president has been deeply engaged in all of the policy conversations.
Totally different story than a few weeks ago, right? Why isn't he out there now? Kabul fell yesterday. Where is the president?
Again, Brianna, the president has spoken to this extensively, and I expect that he will speak to it again soon.
Soon, in the coming days, should we hear something from him today? Do you expect that? It seems like the moment demands that.
I'm not going to get ahead of both decision-making and any announcements on this. All I can say at this point is that we expect the president again to address the American people on Afghanistan, and as soon as we have more to say about that, we will.
While 20 years of service and sacrifice were being flushed down the drain by Joe Biden and his administration, he was on the beach. He was on the beach. Remember Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State? He was also on vacation. Jen Psaki, press secretary, on vacation. 20 years of service and sacrifice thrown away, and the people throwing it away couldn't be bothered to put down the suntan lotion and come into work. And just thinking about it all over again, it angers me to no end. And we're not gonna let Dome get away with acting like she wasn't involved either. Whether or not what she's about to say here was true or not, it was probably a lie. She couldn't wait to run to the cameras and own the entire thing.
President Biden always said that he wants you to be the last person in the room, particularly for big decisions, just as he was for President Obama. He just made a really big decision, Afghanistan.
Yes.
Were you the last person in the room?
Yes.
And you feel comfortable?
I do.
Couldn't wait to brag while our people were dying, while 20 years was thrown away.